Anything you want to place on the record before we get started?
Your Honor, the state would like to be heard on the issue of the therapist records. If now is the appropriate time, I'm prepared to address the court. Thank you, Your Honor. And I appreciate that opportunity to review the case law that applies to what defense counsel is seeking to do with these therapy records. I know the court...
What is that?
I'm going to get
What you want to do with records? I don't know.
No, I'm refuting. We do not believe defense counsel has even reached the threshold of admissibility under the rules of evidence to have these therapy records admitted whole cloth. And here's why, Your Honor. If you look at these medical records and these therapy records, they contain not only medical diagnoses, but statements purported to be from Emily Noble. The case law and the hearsay exceptions state that when you are considering admitting a medical diagnosis as a business record, the court must engage in a multi-pronged analysis. And there are multiple prongs of this analysis that counsel does not meet. Namely, Your Honor, and I'll give you the case, just let me get that for you. And this is coming directly from our very own Court of Appeals here in Delaware County, the 5th District, State v. Boyer. The case, and I'll provide this to you, Your Honor, if you want it, is 2015, Ohio 4951. In that case, the court held and reiterated that in order for the record to come in, not only are several things that have to be done, but I'm going to point out the things that counsel cannot meet. Specifically, that the diagnosis must not have rested solely upon the subjective complaint of the patient. The diagnosis must have been made by a qualified person. We have no statement.
Is there a diagnosis in these records?
We believe that the records of, that yes, there are notes from the therapist regarding diagnosis. If the court looks at the records as a whole, you will see those. If the use of the record is for the purpose of proving the truth of the matter asserted at trial, it must be the product of the parties seeking its admission. These are not the product of the defense seeking its admission. The diagnosis must have been the result of a well-known and accepted objective testing and examining practices and procedures. We have no evidence of that contained in the affidavit submitted, Your Honor. So that's the one part of the analysis as to whether or not the hearsay contained in these records of the medical diagnosis are admissible. And they simply are not, because counsel cannot meet this threshold. And this threshold is reiterated by other cases that I can provide to the court. The other analysis the court must look at are these statements contained in there that say, client reported, client being Emily Noble, Emily Noble's statement to the therapist. And counsel is seeking to admit those, I'm not sure under what basis. Is it statement for a medical purpose? Is it statement as a business record? It is not statement contained in a business record. If it's statements for a medical purpose, we have to have testimony that shows that these statements were made and applied for a medical purpose or diagnosis. You simply cannot infer that the statements made by Emily Noble to her therapist had anything to do with her diagnosis. There has to be expert testimony to that fact. The custodian of records is not qualified to make that opinion. And Your Honor, I can point to case law for the state or for the court regarding it. State v. Holmes, 2003, Ohio 4092. There must be foundational testimony to admit statements for medical purposes. The custodian of records, specifically in State v. Holmes, the court said, is not in a position to provide that foundational testimony, Your Honor. Now, regarding defense counsel's assertion that she wants to use these records with Detective Grubbs, that's simply improper. And the case that establishes that, Your Honor, is Henry McKenzie, 1994, Westlaw 667972, where the court indicated that Evidence Rule 803 does not permit a witness to give hearsay testimony of the content of business records based solely upon the review of those records. That is exactly what she would be asking Detective Grubbs to do. The rules and the case law simply do not allow that, Your Honor. I have additional cases for Your Honor to support the state's position.
What did Detective Grubb do with these records when he obtained them as part of his investigation?
You reviewed them?
Was that part of his evaluation in terms of whether or not the case ought to be presented to the grand jury?
I can't speak for Detective Grubbs regarding that, but
Then I guess we need to find that out.
the decision on whether or not to present a case to the grand jury is the prosecutor's office decision.
Well, I understand the process, but I'm saying part of his, I mean, obviously you receive information from the investigating officer as to all the facts he's gathered. How does he use these records, if at all, regarding part of his determination that the case ought to go forward?
And, Your Honor, if you want to inquire, or if counsel wants to inquire of Detective Grubbs outside the presence of the jury before his testimony, I would make that suggestion. But reviewing the records is not enough to allow him to testify from them.
Okay, you have those cases you referred to there?
Yes.
We'll
So,
bring those up when we finish up there.
yep, I can email them to Nicole, Your Honor, if you would like email copies, or do you want my hard
I
copies?
would like your hard copies right now. You're asking me to make a decision
Pretty
pretty quick.
quickly, so you might as
No, Your
well.
Honor, I'm asking you not to make a decision pretty quickly. Counsel brought this on the court.
You want me to make a decision sometime, right?
Absolutely, Your Honor.
So
But
that's
we're-
fairly quickly if it's
We're
today.
here because defense counsel filed their motion during lunch. All right, Your Honor? We're not asking you to do anything because they want the records admitted.
Okay, I think I understand your argument. If you can give me those copies, I'd appreciate it. Your cases.
Yes, right now, Your Honor. Bring them all up. Excuse my scribbles and highlighting.
Thank you. All right, anything you'd like to say as to how we should proceed?
Thank you, Your Honor. We did file a motion on this just briefly, citing hearsay evidence rule 8033, 8034, and 8036. I would just note, Your Honor, that part of the business records exception, which is 8036, that I know this court is familiar with, is particularly with respect to medical records, is part of the justification, if you will, is that the therapist in this situation, that being Angel Kessler, would have no reason, right, to input inaccurate information in a medical record, because by definition, that information is coming to her in a medical setting. I would just say that 8033, 8034, and 8036, I believe, get us those records in under each of those rules. I just want to address the relevancy issue. I think this is clearly a case about either it's a murder or it's a suicide. It's just as simple as that. And these records are from August 19th to August 2019 to November 2019, the time period in between Joey's suicide and Emily's remains being found. Joey's suicide is directly relevant and dispositive of the issue, given that he was found in a very similar way, hanging in a wooded area. Your Honor, I also think they're relevant with respect to rebut Amy Thomas's testimony, which is that Emily only went to counseling as a result of a condition of FMLA, which is not accurate. The medical records speak for themselves as to why she sought counseling in August of 2019. Lastly, I want to say this.
I think the records do kind of imply that she's there because of FMLA. I hear what you're saying.
You mean because of the disability for which she qualifies under FMLA?
Well, there's some language in the record that
Seems to give an indication she's there because of that, but it's not definitive. But go ahead. I don't mean to get you off base.
Please. And I don't disagree that to qualify for FMLA, you need to have a diagnosis of some sort. Your Honor, I also would just say to the court, I think the records, the treatment history and the counseling records themselves is separate and apart from the single line of diagnosis that is in the records. The diagnosis, which is in the records, which the state has argued about this morning, if the court should think that the records come in but the diagnosis doesn't, absent any additional testimony, I have no issue with that. We can redact the diagnosis, which is the one or two lines, I think at the bottom of the page, and then at the end of the counseling records, I know that the therapist changes the diagnosis. We have no issue with the diagnosis being removed to address the issues of that the state has raised. Otherwise, Your Honor, we would rest on our motion.
do you,
What particularly, are you looking for statements that she made in here or statements made by the counselor or both?
Statements made by the counselor, Your Honor? No. And I think that falls under the diagnosis. Statements made by Emily as to present sense impression, what she was undergoing, what she was feeling and thinking at the time immediately following Joey's death. The counseling records do begin in August of 2019, and so I believe present sense impression as to what she was thinking and feeling on the heels of that suicide. Particularly, Your Honor, I also think it's relevant because in their opening argument, and I understand it's just argument, the state argued how she was brave and how she had rebounded.
I've already ruled that's not coming in.
Okay.
If we do talk about
The records, we're redacting that aspect of any conversation about what occurred when she was 7 years old.
No, separate issue, Your Honor.
Okay.
I'm saying thematically they were saying that Emily wouldn't have killed herself after Joey because she had rebounded from so much suicide before. But the records also rebut that rebounding issue because she's clearly struggling after Joey's suicide, and the records speak to themselves on that. So I'm not seeking to get into therapist statements. Again, I've already said my thoughts on the diagnosis. Also, Your Honor, I respect the court's order with respect to the allegation about prior sexual abuse. The court wants to redact that from the records. No issue there either. I think the Joey suicide is directly relevant. And for the hearsay exceptions that I stated, I think the records come in. I want to say one last thing as to how I would use them with Detective Grubbs. When I say use them, I think the records speak for themselves. I would be obviously work with opposing counsel to redact the areas that I've just mentioned, but my anticipation of Detective Grubbs would be something along the lines of this. During the course of your investigation, did you or other members of your office subpoena mental health records for Emily Noble? Yes, we did. From where did you get those records? When could you tell the jurors the time frame when she sought mental health treatment from Serenity? Boom, boom. Show him the exhibit. Done. The records speak for themselves. I don't need his interpretation of them. That's not what I would seek, and I wouldn't seek. I think they speak for themselves, and they would go back as an exhibit, and if the jurors were interested in them, they could read them.
Your Honor, may I respond briefly, please?
Sure.
Thank you, Your Honor. First,
Counsel is saying that Emily Noble's statements regarding in therapy are present sense impression. However, the state has been prohibited every step of the way from eliciting testimony regarding Emily's present state of mind after she suffered a tragedy, and I'm using defense counsel's word, specifically with witness Amy Thomas. That's a lot of tragedy. When counsel went through absolutely everything that's happened in Emily's life, the state was prohibited from following up as to Emily's present sense impression. It's quite disingenuous to now argue that these records containing her statements should be admissible when the state has been hamstrung by the objections to allowing that testimony to come in. Your Honor, with respect to these records, now counsel says, yes, last night it was, we want it in whole cloth. Now it's, oh no, we can pick and choose what we send back to the jury. Your Honor, these records and the rules of evidence exist to protect the truth and veracity contained in the records. To redact and parse them out without having the therapist or an expert to lay the foundational testimony for the jury to understand what is contained in those records. There's just no legal basis to do that, Your Honor. And I point again to State v. Holmes that says a custodian of records, which is the only thing counsel has provided by way of affidavit, is wholly not able to opine on whether or not statements contained in medical records are made for the purpose of medical diagnosis. We have no one here that will come in and say that right now, Your Honor. And until that happens, those records and the statements contained therein should not be put before the jury.
Thanks. All right.
We're going to take a quick break and then we'll bring jury in. Thank you. Have a seat. Good morning, members of the jury. Everybody follow the court's admonition last night? We good? Ready to go? Thank you very much. State ready to proceed?
Yes, Your Honor.
Defense ready to proceed? Ready to go?
Yes, Your Honor, sorry.
No, I didn't mean to interrupt. I was waiting until you finish your conversation.
Sorry.
Man. That's all right. That's no problem. Call your next witness.
State Recall Detective Powell to the stand.
Do you swear or affirm the testimony about to give in this case to the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Sir, can you state your name, spell your last name for the record, please?
James Howe, Howe.
And, sir, where are you currently employed?
City of Columbus, Division of Police.
What do you do for the City of Columbus Division of Police?
I currently work in our digital forensics unit.
And this is always a loaded question, but I'm going to ask it anyways. Can you explain to the jury what digital forensics, what is that?
In our unit, we handle all digital evidence, whether it's from a mobile device like a digital video recorder, computer. If it's digital, we normally extract data from it and then present that to detectives, prosecutors, defense attorneys.
And when you say digital data, is that consist of cell phones, computers, USB drives, hard drives, basically anything that can store electronic data?
Yes.
And how long have you been working in that capacity?
I've been doing digital forensics since 2012.
Okay. And in order to handle digital forensics and to deal with that on a regular basis, do you have any specialized training that you've undergone in order to do that?
Yes.
Give us an idea of some of the trainings that you've undergone in order to complete those activities.
I hold certifications in the area of digital forensics and digital evidence. I've trained with the Secret Service pretty extensively at the National Computer Forensic Institute in Hoover, Alabama. I've also trained in digital forensics with the Federal Bureau of Investigation and several private companies.
Give us a ballpark. How many various trainings have you undergone over the course of your career involving digital forensics?
I'd say probably 100 or more. I don't have an exact count.
And a lot of those, would they entail cell phones?
Yes.
Okay. And prior to working in digital forensics, did you have other law enforcement experience?
Yes.
And can you explain to the jury your previous law enforcement experience?
I've been with the City of Columbus since 2001. From 2001 to 2008, I worked patrol in the South Linden area of Columbus. In 2008, I went to our homicide bureau to work in the assault unit, and then in 2013, I was in our homicide unit until I took a role in the digital forensics unit once it was created in 2018.
And did you have training that you underwent prior to becoming a general law enforcement officer?
Yes.
Can you explain to the jury what that training entailed?
I completed our basic training academy, which is almost 7 months. I went through our detective bureau training, which was 2 weeks, and then I've been to several post trainings for like interview and interrogation, things like that.
And other than the initial trainings, is training pretty much regular and ongoing?
Yes.
So you talked a little bit about forensics, and I'm going to focus you more today on cell phones. Fair enough?
Yes.
Okay. So let's talk generally. How would someone reach out to you in order to do a cell phone analysis?
There's a couple different ways that we do it. We'll take emails. People will bring us the evidence directly. Sometimes we'll go to scenes. Typically, a detective will reach out to us, give us an overview of what they're looking for and what type of evidence they have, and then we'll make a determination on how we're going to handle it.
Okay, so if someone comes into the office, hands you a cell phone, and asks you to do an analysis of that, what is the first step of your procedure?
The first thing we're going to do is secure the device. We're going to make sure that we take it off the network. We're going to talk to the detective. We're going to figure out if we're dealing, what type of legal authority we're dealing with, whether it be a search warrant, consent, because that's going to determine how we handle it and what we do. The first thing we're going to do is take it off the network, so that way no data is changed on the phone.
And when you say you take it off the network so no data has changed, can you explain that a little bit more, please?
Again, it'll depend on the state of the device and what type of authority we have to use it. What we'll typically do is put the device into airplane mode and likely eject the SIM card from the device. Those two things will help ensure that it's off the network. It's not going to send or receive any data.
Once you take that initial step, what happens next?
Again, it's going to determine the state of the device, whether it's on, whether it's off. If it's off, we're going to leave it off until we figure out, what we're going to do with it. We'll do some research on the device because different makes, models of phones have to be handled differently. Once we figure out what we're going to do and we have that authority, that's when we'll start our process. If the device is on, we'll leave it powered on. We'll supply power to the device so that way the device doesn't turn off because that presents a whole different set of circumstances.
Okay, so let's assume for purposes of your testimony today the device is on and accessible to you. Okay? Assuming the device is on and accessible to you, and assuming you have legal authority to then either search or do what you want with that cell phone, what do you do next?
In that case, we would determine if we had a password or not. If we had a password, we'd manually put it into airplane mode and then eject that SIM card from the device. If we didn't have a passcode and the device was turned on, we would use what's called a Faraday box, Ramsey box in our office. What that is it's a box that prevents any network connectivity.
And is it fair to assume then the next step is for you to start accessing the phone?
Yes.
Okay, and walk me through those steps and procedures when it comes to actually accessing the phone and then what happens at that point.
Again, depending on make and model, in this case it was an Apple device, we have several different tools that we can use to access that data. We're always going to go for the richest data set, so in this case we're going to attempt to get what's called a full file system extraction off of the phone, and that'll give us the most amount of data for evidence purposes.
You mentioned a full file system extraction. Are there different types of extractions?
Yes. On Apple devices, iPhone specifically, you're going to be able to get what's called a logical extraction, which is an iTunes backup, essentially. That's going to be the lowest level, and then you're going to be able to get a full file system if you have the correct tools.
Okay. And the differing file extractions are attempts to gather or to get as much information off the phone as possible?
Yes.
What types of physical tools or software tools are used during this process?
We use Celebrate's UFED, which is a universal forensic extraction device, to extract data from most phones. We have other tools in our office that are a little higher level, and then we use what's called physical analyzer to parse that data out once we get the extraction.
Now, you've used the word extraction a few times, and when I think of extraction, I think of taking from one thing and kind of putting it over here to the side. But what do you mean by extraction?
With an extraction, what we'll do is we'll create an image of the device contents. It's a copy of what's on the device, and that's what we will work off of rather than work on the actual device itself.
Now, why would you want to use the digital copy to work on or to search or look through things as opposed to the physical device itself?
With the physical device itself, if you manually go through the device, phones they can't be write blocked, so you're going to change things. It's just the nature of a cell phone. So working off of a copy with our software allows us to make sure we minimize any changes that will occur on the phone itself. For example, if we were to manually scroll through, like say, text messages, and there was an unread text message on the phone, and we happened to click on that, it would then flip what's called a flag, and that message would go from unread to read.
So by looking at the image, let me ask you this, the digital image, that extraction, does that create a perfect extraction or perfect copy of what's on the phone? A
I'm sorry?
physical phone? Yeah, let me ask you a better way. So when we're talking about the extraction, you talked about taking an image of what is on the physical phone. Does that make a copy of what's on the phone and allows it to be searchable? Or does that in and of itself change some of the data?
Yes, so we'll have an image of the phone that we then put into our analysis software, and then that will display the contents that we were able to extract.
And then when you're looking through that extraction or that image and you're reviewing items, does that change those flags or those items that you discussed on the physical phone?
No.
So would that leave that evidence or what's on the phone untouched and in the state it was when airplane mode was turned on?
Yes.
Are there some items when doing extractions of phones that just aren't recovered, and what do you have to do in those cases if they exist to look at those additional items?
There can be. Obviously, there's a lot of different applications, probably hundreds of thousands at this point, with the various like Android store, the Apple store. So not all the software parses that type of data. So there might be a new application on the market that the tools just don't support. That information is stored in databases on the phone, and we can manually go in and look at some of that if we have to.
And if you have to manually go through, say, an application or something of that nature, how's that done?
We will, again, in that physical analyzer software which we use, we would go straight to that. We would locate the application, we would go to the database, and then it's just manually looking through like the raw data and kind of piecing stuff together.
Now, you've mentioned a few times something called physical analyzer. Can you give us a bigger picture idea of what physical analyzer is?
Yes. That's, again, the analysis software that we use. That's what we load that extraction image into. The software then looks at the whole image and kind of categorizes all the data for us. It puts it in a displayable manner where we're able to read it.
Is it fair to say it puts it in a more readable format other than a bunch of zeros and ones and computer jargon?
Yes.
Okay. And by putting it in physical analyzer, does that make it more searchable or able to find whatever may have been on the phone?
Yes. It categorizes most of the data, and then we're also able to manually go through that and search through it if we're looking for something specific.
Once you're able to do an extraction on a phone and determine that extraction was done properly and readable through physical analyzer, in your unit, how does that typically work? Do you review the data, or do you then pass it on to someone else to review the data at that point?
Both ways. It depends on the experience level of the detective. We have some detectives who are very good at going through the data and they want to manually go through it themselves. So they'll ask for what they typically refer to as a full dump. And then we'll have other detectives who aren't as comfortable doing it. We'll sit down with them. They'll specifically tell us what they're looking for, and then we'll search through the data and tag everything that related to whatever it is they may be looking for.
Okay. And is that in part because sometimes you don't know what the case may be about or what might be relevant evidence?
Yes, a lot of times we aren't involved in the case initially. It could be several days, weeks, or months after, sometimes years before we actually get the data and look at it.
Now, something I want to talk about here. Well, you mentioned Cellbrite Reader. Are you familiar with Cellbrite Reader?
Yes.
Can you explain to the jury what Cellbrite Reader is?
Cellbrite Reader, the UFED Reader, is Cellbrite's version. It's a pared down version of Physical Analyzer, basically. It allows the detectives or prosecutors or defense attorneys to go through that report. What we'll do is once we've done our analysis, the extraction's finished, it's been placed in the Physical Analyzer software. We've done everything that we're going to do with it at that point. We'll create what's called a UFED Reader report from that Physical Analyzer software, and then we'll provide that to whoever needs it.
And again, then that would allow whoever that gets passed on to the ability to search the information that was extracted in a more user-friendly way?
Yes.
Again, that process, does that change any of the nature of the data that was extracted from the phone?
No.
And again, does that change any of the data that would have originally been on the phone up until the point that it was put on airplane mode?
No.
Are you able to create something then called extraction reports?
Yes.
And can you explain to the jury what an extraction report generally is?
So the UFED gives you several different options. You can do PDF reports, Excel reports, Microsoft Word reports. It just depends what that end person is looking for, what format they want it in. The reader and PDFs are usually the most popular because they can't be changed and they're the easiest to search through. So once the detectives can generate their own report from the UFED reader report that we give them, or they can just stay with that UFED reader report.
And obviously we're here in the case involving Emily Noble and Matheau Moore. Were you involved in some capacity in this case?
Yes.
And did Detective Leckie from Westerville Police Department reach out to you and speak with you about this case?
Yes.
And did you assist him with working through the extractions in this case and going through those digital items?
Yes.
Your Honor, may I approach?
Certainly.
Sir, Detective, I'm going to ask you to look at what's been labeled States Exhibit 13, 14, and 15. If you can just look at those briefly, please. Generally speaking, what are those items, States Exhibit 13, 14, and 15?
These are extraction reports from the Apple iPhone.
Just to clarify something, sir, States Exhibit 14, I'm going to point to an area in the middle there. I believe you mentioned that was, these are iPhones. Was States Exhibit 14 a different type of phone?
Yes, I'm sorry. That's a Samsung Galaxy.
I'm going to put up one of these reports that we just identified, States Exhibit 15. I just want to walk through this. So, sir, there's a screen there next to you. Feel free to draw in there if you think it helps the explanation. But I first want to focus you on this area here that I've sort of boxed off. I believe it's entitled Summary. Can you describe just the general nature of the content that is put in the report under Summary?
Yes. So this is going to be input. Some of this is going to be input by the person who generates the report. The very top line is going to give you the Cellbrite Physical Analyzer version number. The second line is going to be your report creation date and time, so that's the time that the detective actually generated the report. The third line here is going to be your time zone settings, and that's going to be based off of the phone itself. The next one is going to be the examiner who was using the physical analyzer software, and again, that's user input, so Detective David Leckie, sorry. In user input, again, that's going to be the location of where the extraction occurred. The next line is going to be the case number that the user input. Next is going to be the department, so in this case it was Westerville Division of Police. Your investigator, again, user input, Detective Leckie would have put Detective S. Grubbs. And then here is your crime type, which was homicide in this case.
If it makes you feel better, I already apologized to Detective Leckie yesterday in case I butchered his name, so I think he's pretty used to that by now. Looking next, just generally here for source extraction, I'm going to make a notation here, a little arrow in the middle of that. Can you just identify what we're looking at, where I've identified?
Yes, that is the identification of the device once it was connected up to the physical analyzer software, the UFED. So it was an iPhone 8 Plus.
Also, these top two portions of source extraction, can you identify that as well, please?
That's going to be the date and time that the extraction started and when it was completed.
I'm going to flip now to page 3 of 9. And actually, I'm going to start first on page 2 of 9, just to show this is a section labeled device information, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Now going to page 3 of 9. I'm going to notate here towards the top of the page, MSISDN. Can you explain to the ladies and gentlemen of the jury that area of information?
Yeah, that's the mobile subscriber identification number, so it's essentially going to be the phone number to the device.
I'm also going to notate two areas towards the top of that page labeled Apple ID. It appears to be on there 2 different places. Can you identify that area as well?
Yes, that's going to be the user accounts that the software identified as being in the device as an Apple ID.
Do you know why there would be maybe more than one Apple ID on a device?
It had been signed into from both of the accounts, and our softwares, or the physical analyzer software, is able to identify multiple user accounts.
So I want to flip now to, I'll start here on the bottom of page 7 of 9, this area labeled contents. Before we start walking through contents, can you describe to the jury this area of the report and what information generally that entails?
That's going to be the data that we extracted from the device, so it's going to kind of break it out and categorize it for you.
Yes. So fair to say that prior to contents, there's a lot of the background information on the phone, the device, the types of extractions done, and then content then brings in what was actually located on the phone once that extraction was completed?
Yes.
Okay, and I want to walk through these because there's a lot of information, but the first one there, activity sensor data. What type of information would be entailed in activity sensor data under contents?
In that one, you're going to see health data, so you're going to see steps taken. If they have a watch with, like an Apple Watch or something with the device, you could see heartbeat, things of that nature. It's going to give you, with the steps taken, it's going to give you the number of steps. It's going to give you the area of the steps in meters.
And before we continue, there are 2 columns. One that says included in report and one that says total. Can you identify those for me, please?
Yes. So we do have the ability to go in and make what we refer to as like a condensed report. So it'll tell you the number of artifacts. So in like this case, it's 7,993. The examiner could go in and determine that, say, 300 of those were relevant and the other were not, and you were able to just tag those items, include those in the report. So it would make a much smaller artifact report to go through.
And the extraction report, an example that we're looking at here in States Exhibit 15, can that report be created multiple times?
Yes.
Okay, so perhaps there's maybe a smaller, more condensed report. There could also be a bigger report depending on who's using the software and what they're looking for.
Yes, like for example, in our office, we might give you a full report after the extraction's done. Our analysts and detectives would start to go through it, and then we might work on a much smaller report based on the information that they give us, and we pare that down and give that to them later, just because of the amount of time it takes.
Now, we use this first one as an example because we were just talking about it, activity sensor data. It appears there are 7,993 items included in this report. Is that searchable in any way? And if I have this pulled up on my computer, this report, how am I able to do that?
Yes, so For example, in the UFED reader report, you could double click on that activity sensory data and you could look at just that data rather than searching through. So you can search you can do it a couple of different ways. You can search the whole image that we've taken to see if that, whatever it is you're looking for, shows up, or you can look in just this particular artifact. So if you were to, for example, to double click on that activity sensory data, you could search just through that database.
Okay, and would that then bring up a sort of sub-report of just activity sensor data?
Yes.
Okay. So is it the easiest way to think of that as almost like a website link where you click it and then it takes you to that website?
Yes.
What about the next item, aggregated application usage? What types of information would be included in there?
So if you were to launch if you have a smartphone, you were to launch an application on the phone, say Facebook or Snapchat, anything like that, it's going to track that, what usage you were, what apps you were using at a particular time.
I'm going to skip ahead to some of the more known ones, but calendar and call logs. Can you identify what types of items we find in calendar and call logs?
Calendar can have stock items like holidays. You'll see that a lot, Christmas, Halloween, things like that. And then it can also be user data. So if you put in birthdays or you have an event or something that you're attending, so we can also go through that.
And what about call logs?
Call logs is essentially who you're calling, who's calling you.
And again, especially calendar and call logs, these are things that I can pull my phone out and search on my physical phone, correct?
Yes.
But by doing the extraction of this type, you're able to view those items without changing any of the underlying data on the phone. Is that a fair assessment?
Yes. Once we have extracted the data from the phone, we typically don't do anything else with the device itself.
What about chats? This area here, and then it looks like there are some sub-items working our way down from there.
Yeah, so chats is exactly chats, but broken down, you'll see it's between like Facebook Messenger. It'll give you the Facebook Messenger ID. On an iPhone, they have what's called iMessages, so that's an Apple device to an Apple device. Native messages, those are going to be your just typical text messages. Say you text someone who has an Android device, you're not going to see that iMessage. You're not going to see that blue bubble. You're going to see the green bubble.
Now, you had mentioned earlier that I believe this like chats area, you could click it and it was like a website link. Does that also work for these sort of sub folders?
Yes, you could search through each one of those individually. So if you knew the two people were communicating with Apple devices, the first place you would likely go is through those iMessages.
And just for purposes of the record, I'm identifying on the screen the chat section and some of the subsections on the screen for the jury.
Yes.
There's an item a little bit further down, about a third of the way down, device connectivity, and there appear to be 1,173 items. What types of information do we find under device connectivity?
If your device is connecting to, like, say, Wi-Fi routers, or it's seeing cell tower IDs, things like that, in the connectivity, you could see that type of information.
And I skipped up here cell towers, but are you able to use cell tower and device connectivity to gather some location data?
Yes.
And also there's a section down here labeled locations as well.
Yes.
What types of information could those items provide?
So if you're looking at the cell towers up there, what that is logging is when the device sees what it thinks is a cell tower, just based on some information that the device receives. So it would be the physical tower itself where it thinks that is. The locations is the more accurate place that we would go to look. So if you're taking photographs and you have like location services enabled, if you're using GPS on like an application, at that point we'd be able to pull some information from there.
And the next item I want to look at is device events, the next one down from under connectivity. Can you describe what types of information would be entailed in device events?
Yes, so your Apple device really tracks like everything that you do. So as far as it's for other connectivity, like if you if you want to say start a text on your iPhone and you finish it on your iPad and then you read it on like your Mac device, it tracks all of that activity. So in this case, you could potentially see if a device was plugged in, if an application was in the foreground, the background, just any type of device activity. It's just a lot of information. If you're using a particular app at a time, at a specific time, if you move an app from looking at it to go to another app, it tracks that.
You mentioned, so plugging a phone in or unplugging a phone, is that something that would be under device events or something else?
That would be under device events.
Okay. What about turning a phone on, turning a phone off? Is that something that's logged and would be in the report here?
Yes, you could see a device turned on, a device unlocked, a device powered off. If the screen just lights up and then goes back off.
And where is that information contained in?
That's going to be in the Knowledge C database, so you would see that under the device events.
Okay. What about if I'm looking at an image or looking at something on my phone, sort of an up and down on my phone, and I turn it sideways to more of that like landscape format? Is
Yes.
that logged in any way?
Yes, you would see if you were in the portrait or the landscape. If a device rotates, it logs all of that.
Just a little bit in the middle there, instant messages. Can you explain, is that different than the messages section that you described earlier?
Yes, that can break down like if you're using, they used to do them all together. The instant messages, they break them out like if you're using WhatsApp and things like that to go back and forth with messages.
There's a section down here labeled notes. Can you identify to the jury what types of information would be in the notes section?
Yes, in the notes section, the Apple device has it's just labeled notes. You can go in and write things. You can store photographs there, things of that nature.
A little bit further down now, searched items appears to be in the report. What types of information would we expect to be contained under searched items?
That can be information that was searched on the device. So if you're looking through an application, if you're looking through like a web browser, things of that nature.
Just under that, social media.
That'll break down the different social media accounts, things that were going on with those accounts.
And then I think the last one on this page at the very bottom, web history.
Yes.
What types of information is typically contained in web history?
You'd be able to go through the browser history. So the stock application on an Apple device is the Safari browser, but you can use other browsers as well, so it would break those down.
Now, I believe, well, let me just ask you this. So in these columns, the columns on the right-hand side, those two columns that we identified earlier, there appear to be some red items under there that I marked that say deleted. Can you explain what the difference would be between this first number and then maybe some of the deleted items that are notated there?
The first number is the total number of artifacts that were recovered. So in this particular case, it was 841. The ones marked in red that say 180, those were 180 items that were recovered that were marked for deletion.
And when you say marked for deletion, what is that?
It had been what you would typically think of as deleted, where the user's not going to see it any longer. The way deletion actually works is we're able to recover it as long as it hasn't been overwritten with new data.
So if there's an item in this one that I marked 180 deleted, does that notate items that were marked for deletion but were recovered from the extraction?
Yes.
And if I were to have clicked then or double-clicked search items and it pulls up that separate report, would that separate report contain both the items that weren't marked for deletion and the items that were marked for deletion?
In this case, yes.
Okay, and would that be notated on those reports whether that item was deleted or not?
Yes, you would be able to go through and see which item was marked for deletion.
I know we're not going through every single line item, but your testimony based on these line items in a general sense, those columns and so forth, does that testimony fit for all the items that we're walking through or not walking through on your report?
Yes.
I think the last one here I want to focus on is this one here called timeline. It appears to be a pretty large number over here on the right-hand side. Can you explain to the jury what the timeline means?
The timeline is all the artifacts grouped together by date and time, and it'll show you the application usage, the device events, text messages sent, received in a ascending or descending order.
So instead of double-clicking one of these and just getting a single item, does timeline sort of congregate a lot of those items together and put them in a linear order?
Yes.
What types of items are generally located in the timeline section?
Pretty much anything you see in the artifacts, it's going to be device usage. So what we'll do, what we typically use timeline for, is if we know a specific date and time that we're looking for, the first thing we'll do is jump into that timeline, start to go through it, filter that time down, and then look at what was going on at the device at that time. So you may see an application come up in the background. You may see a text message sent, a photograph taken, just things like that in the order that it was done.
So does the timeline function in these reports give you or the investigating detective a chance to look at a period of time and see what the phone may have been doing or not doing during that period of time?
Yes.
Or what the user is doing on that phone or a user is doing on that phone during that period of time?
Yes, what was occurring during that specific time frame.
And just since we're here as well, there's an area marked data files and then again a bunch of sub-reports. What are we looking at there?
That's a lot of just data. The two most important ones that we typically get into, the three most important ones are the databases, the images, and the videos.
And again, all these items under content that we've described are searchable either by those specific functions or in the timeline situation, kind of putting all those together?
Yes.
Or most of those together?
Yes.
If I may have just one moment, Your Honor. Thank you, Detective. I have no further questions at this time.
Cross, please.
One moment, Your Honor. Okay. No, Your Honor. Thank you.
No questions? All right. You folks have any questions? Feel free to write them down. All right, we have some. Morning, Detective. A few questions the jury has for you, and I'll just read these questions, and if you can answer them, please do. Ready? Thank you. Are the records extracted or collected on the iPhone saved anywhere else? In other words, if the phone is destroyed, say burned, would there be any way to retrieve information?
So two different ways, if I'm understanding the question correctly, is we can pull data from third parties, so cell phone carriers, we can go to Apple itself, individual specific applications, say if we have a Snapchat account or, we're able to identify any of those accounts. If a phone is damaged, it depends on the actual amount of damage. We have people who can repair those. For example, I have a phone that we were currently extracting data from that has a bullet hole through it. So it is possible, but it depends on the level of damage to get it from the device itself.
Thank you. If someone takes out a SIM card and puts in another, does the info on the phone go with the SIM card? Is it then lost if another SIM card is in its place? Those are two questions, basically.
With that information, we would be able to track through the phone itself and through the cell phone carrier that SIM card exchange. There's identification numbers on the card, what's called an ICC ID and an MZ number, an IMSI number. We would see that change, and the device does track that.
Okay. Will the web history include incognito mode?
Yes.
And will the search items include incognito mode?
Yes.
Were the items numbered for deletion, mainly deleted by the user? I'm not sure I can read the question. I'm sorry. Were the items numbered for deletion mainly deleted by user or automatic?
Both. It would depend. We would have to go in and then look at that deletion and see what occurred. There are things that, like for applications, for example, where they will just automatically delete something, or you could have your text messages set up to delete, like with an iPhone, after a certain amount of time. So while that may not be user activity going in and manually deleting something, it would be the device, the system doing it.
And will the timeline list the items in the time zone of the phone at the time of the extraction?
Yes, we have ways that we can go in and look at that and ensure that it's the correct time zone, or at least the time zone that was on the device at the time.
All right. Thank you. Does that raise any questions for the state?
I hate to say one question, it always ends up more than that.
That's fine, as many as you want.
So you talked about the SIM card and a couple of the numbers that would log whether SIM cards were moved.
Yes.
Is the easiest way to think of that like a VIN number on a car?
Yes, the ICC ID number is essentially the serial number of that card. It's the one, if you've ever seen a SIM card, that's typically printed on the outside. The IMSI number is internal. It's on the SIM memory that we're able to extract. We can get that from the carrier also.
Nothing further. Thank you. Thank you.
Any questions from the defense?
Yes, Your Honor. Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning.
Just one. You used just now the term user activity, and I've heard you use usage before. I just want to, for the jury, make sure that that I'm understanding. User activity, would you agree with me, excludes data that may not be the exclusive result of human interaction with the device?
Yes.
So let me give you, for instance. So if user activity excludes activities such as answered calls, read chats, that kind of thing. Does that make sense? User activity is when I'm really interfacing with my phone.
Yes.
Okay. And then there's usage, which is a different terminology. Is that correct?
Yes.
And how is usage defined?
They can be both. It would show usage if you're using like the application at the time, but there can be things that applications can update. They can send you notifications, stuff like that, and you could see that would be listed as usage. That device is, that application is being used at that time. I guess, at that time. It's active.
And so kind of the larger umbrella is usage, but user activity is when I'm interfacing with the phone.
Yes, and that's where the timeline would be really important, because you would want to look at the before and after of what's going on to determine if it's user activity or if it's just the application or whatever, doing something it's supposed to do.
Thank you. Nothing further.
Thank you, Detective. Appreciate it. You may sit down. Call your next witness.
State calls Detective Grubbs this second.
Raise your right hand, please. Swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give in this case will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Can you please state your name for the record?
It's Detective Stephen Grubbs, Grubbs.
And what is your current occupation, sir?
I am a detective for the Westerville Police Department.
And how long have you been a detective, sir?
Been a detective almost 5 years.
And did you have prior law enforcement experience before becoming a detective?
I did.
And can you walk us through that a little bit, please?
So I received my Bachelor's of Criminal Justice from Tiffin University. Later went on to receive my Master's of Criminal Justice from Michigan State University. I was hired by the Westerville Police Department October of 2000. After becoming certified as a peace officer, I worked essentially patrol and as a training officer for other newer officers from essentially February 2001 until I was injured on duty in 2006. While I was injured and rehabbing and everything else, as in my light duty status, they essentially, if you remember when the To Catch a Predator stuff and all that was going on, all the online chatting and activity and stuff, while I was on light duty, they had me start chatting with guys online, ultimately trying to find, posing as a underage female and trying to find guys online looking to meet.
Was there a specific organization that you worked with for that?
At that time, no. As just out of a light duty status. Ultimately came back full duty as a police officer. And then in 2009, I was one of the initial members of the Franklin County Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force. And since then, I had served essentially a dual purpose. I would spend part of my week working as a uniformed patrol officer and part of my week with the ICAC task force.
And how long did you do that, sir?
I basically had that joint role from 2009 until I became a full-time detective in late 2017.
I want to turn your attention back to May 26th of 2020. Were you working as a detective that day?
Yes, sir.
What do you remember about how your day began?
Typically how the day begins is we receive a briefing sheet. It's kind of a rundown of reports that the department has taken from the previous day. It's broken down by each shift and the type of report. It gives the report number and just usually like a 1 or 2 sentence synopsis as to what the report was about. Like if your, say, Officer Jones had gone out and taken a theft report from a car that had been broken into, it'd say, car broken into overnight, iPad stolen. Just as a thumbnail version as to what the reports were.
So my day generally starts out by reviewing the reports taken from the previous day.
And did you see a report relating to a missing 52-year-old woman?
I did.
And what did you do when you saw that?
As that part of that thumbnail provides the report number itself, so I can then go into the system and actually pull up the report and read all the details that the patrol officer had taken. You know, the exact location, what the narrative was, the dates and times, anything relevant to the report itself, I'm able to read it.
After you read the initial information, what did you do next?
I actually tracked down my Detective Sergeant Alloway and requested if I could be assigned this missing person report for investigation.
And did then Sergeant Alloway assign that case to you?
Yes, sir, he did.
Can you describe for the jury what it means to be to have an investigation assigned to you?
To have it assigned to you, essentially, that case is your baby. You know, you're responsible for it. You can reach out and ask others for help if you need it. Generally, most cases, you can usually work either by yourself or with one or two other people. Of course, the good thing about our detective bureau is if we need something, we're there for each other. So if I need 5 other guys to help with things, I can do it. So essentially, at that point, you almost become a quarterback at that point, where you can't do everything on your own. You need some of your teammates to help you investigate a case.
And were you the lead investigator then in this investigation here?
Yes, sir.
With respect to my colleague, I want to skip forward a little bit towards the end of this investigation.
Yes, sir.
Did you receive a call on September 16th of 2020?
Yes, sir, I did.
And what was that call that you received?
It was a call from Detective Sergeant Alloway notifying me that a body had been located in the woods.
And did you respond to that location?
Yes, sir, I did.
Generally speaking, where was that?
It was essentially northeast of County Line and Crossings in Westerville.
You've been here and seen the map a lot of times.
Yes, sir.
What's the nearest road along those woods?
County Line Road.
How did you go into the woods when you got there?
I had parked my vehicle actually on County Line. There were numerous emergency vehicles lined up at that point, and parked and tracked down Lieutenant Dickinson, who was one of the on-scene supervisors at that point, and had made my way in from County Line Road and the sidewalk north through into the wooded area.
Did you take photographs of the scene when you responded?
Yes, sir, I did.
And were you aware of anybody else that was going to be dispatched to that location?
Yes, I was notified that Ohio BCI was en route, but they were not on scene at that point.
And what was BCI's role going to be?
They would be the primary ones to take more photographs, gather any evidence, and then ultimately provide that evidence to us.
So ultimately, you were not going to be the one to personally process the scene?
That is correct.
But you did take some photos to show what it looked like when you were there?
Yes, sir.
Your Honor, if I may approach. Now, Your Honor, may I approach the witness? Detective, I'm handing you what's been marked State Exhibits 63 through 70. If you take a moment for approval.
Okay.
Do you recognize those photographs?
Yes, sir, I do.
And generally speaking, what are they?
These are photographs essentially starting out from the sidewalk closest to County Line Road and then entering into the woods as you approach the body in the wood line.
And are those some of the photographs that you took on the evening of September 16th?
Yes, they are.
Are they true and accurate depictions of the scene as you saw it that evening?
Yes, sir.
Your Honor, at this time, I'd ask to publish State Exhibit 63 through 70 to the jury.
Any objection?
No, Your Honor, thank you.
Please go.
Detective, for the record, I'm now showing you State Exhibit 63 up on the projector. Can you tell us what it is that we're looking at here?
This is the sidewalk and crime scene tape as you are facing north, generally into the woods north of County Line Road.
Detective, I'm now showing you State Exhibit 64. Can you tell the jury what it is we're looking at here?
This is, again, continuing facing north as you approach what appears to be a body in the woods north of County Line.
And can you circle that for the jury what it is you're looking at there? And Detective, can you describe where you're standing to take this photograph?
Standing south of the body, I'd say approximately 20-25 feet of it.
Elevation-wise, compared to where the sidewalk is, can you describe for us?
Yes, it's actually from the sidewalk as you start to enter the woods. The hill will actually go down decline, and it's not an easy terrain to make it through, but then it will level out. But this area is lower than the County Line Road part itself.
Detective, I'm now showing you what's been marked as State Exhibit 65. Can you tell us what we're looking at here?
This is another photograph from the south facing north of a body in the woods north of County Line.
State Exhibit 66.
Again, this is another photograph of the body as it was found in the woods north of County Line.
In the middle of the body, there's something hanging down there. Can you describe for the jury what that was?
It's a part of a black plastic USB.
Generally speaking, can you describe the positioning of the body?
Generally speaking, it is upright. She is essentially on her knees. You can see her right foot sticking out, and the left foot is later determined to be underneath the body itself.
Detective, I'm now showing you what's marked as State Exhibit 67. Can you tell the jury what we're looking at here?
So this is after the Delaware County coroner's investigator and BCI had been on scene. Didn't want to approach before they were there. And this is a photograph northwest, basically aiming down towards the body itself. This is more of the front of the remains of the body.
Detective, I'm now showing you what's marked as State Exhibit 68. Can you tell the jury what it is we're looking at here?
This is a close-up of the rest of the USB. As I mentioned earlier, the black plastic USB that you could see on the back, this is more the USB that was above the body.
So I want to talk about the ends of the cord,
Yes, sir.
or cable, I guess, maybe a better word. Showing again State Exhibit 66. Can you circle where one end of the cable was?
Yes, sir.
So right in the middle of the back,
Yes, sir.
hanging down. And then on State Exhibit 68, are you able to see the other end of the cord?
Yes, sir, you can.
And can you tell us where that is? Detective, I want to turn your attention right up. If you go up from the end of the cord, up a little ways.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, absolutely. Detective, again, could you circle where the end of the cord is there? For the record, it's in the bottom middle of the photograph. Going from the end of the cord, tracing it upwards a little bit, what is the next piece that you see there?
The next piece, and I can't recall what it's got an official term, but I can't recall it, but it's this piece right here from the end of it.
And can you describe, without obviously what the name of it is, but can you tell us what that looks like or what that piece is?
It's still a part of the USB itself. It's a thicker part of it.
And is it cable or harder plastic or something else? What's that thing like?
It's hard plastic, like the rest of the USB itself.
And Detective, can you describe what that harder piece of plastic is stuck through there?
It's stuck through the end of the other half of the USB that's been folded over, and it's essentially threaded through that loop.
And is what was holding that entire cord together then to maintain that position?
Just that little black circular part was the only thing completing the loop at that point.
Was there any knot that was tied with that end of the cord?
At that point of the cord right there? No, sir.
Right above that, at the top of the photograph that we're looking at, do you see a knot anywhere?
Yes, sir, I do.
And can you circle that for us? Was that the only knot you observed on this cord when you were on scene on September 16th?
That is correct.
Now showing you what's been marked as State's Exhibit 69. Can you tell the jury what it is that we're looking at here?
Well, in the foreground is a tree branch, but behind that is the rest of the USB cord as it loops over a tree branch, which is above the body at the scene.
And can you circle that just so the jury is aware of what we're talking about? And that shows the USB cable where it goes over the branch and then back down.
Yes, sir.
And then finally, State's Exhibit 70. Tell us what we're looking at there.
This is two indentations that were on that same branch itself after the ligature in the body had been removed from the scene.
And when you say ligature, what do you mean?
The USB cord itself.
That branch, can you tell us what type of plant or thing that was that the car was wrapped over?
Well, not being much of a tree guy myself, I actually reached out to the forestry division from Ohio State University, and they had asked me, and this was essentially a couple weeks later, a week or two later, to take some more photographs of the tree itself, get some close-ups of the bark, if there were any berries on it, what the leaves look like, so that way I could email it to Ohio State, and then they could offer a better opinion as to what sort of plant or tree that it was.
Okay. And again, when who responded from BCI to the scene? Do you recall?
I can recall, but I'm drawing a blank right now.
All right. And was that individual from BCI the one that was going to be tasked with taking more photographs and collecting the evidence?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I want to go back now to the beginning of your investigation.
Okay.
After the case was assigned to you, what was the first thing that you ended up doing?
First thing I did is I went and pulled up the driver's license information for Matt Moore, Emily Noble, and Celeste Groen, since she was named in the initial report itself from Officer Hollis, just so I had an idea later on, one, what these people look like, try to get more of a background of these individuals involved in this report.
Did you leave the police department and go somewhere else then?
I did.
And where'd you go?
Detective Peachy and I actually traveled up to Abbey Cross Lane.
And what was the purpose of going to Abbey Cross Lane?
We were going to attempt to knock and talk with Mr. Moore's residence.
Can you describe for the jury what a knock and talk means to you?
Knock and talk is essentially what the name involves. It just involves knocking on someone's door and trying to either provide them with information or ask some questions. It's a non-custodial thing. It's more of just an investigative tool that we use.
And did you go to 46 Abbey Cross?
Yes, sir.
And when you knocked on the door, did somebody answer?
So those present at the scene was Mr. Moore, his cousin, and his father.
Did you have a recording device with you during that time?
Yes, sir, I did.
And can you describe for the jury what that was?
It's just a little handheld audio recording device. It doesn't record any sort of video or anything like that. I like to do it as a backup to if I have a formal interview with someone where I can't have any audio. There are times I'll also have it essentially in my notepad itself, and there's a pocket on the front, and a lot of times I'll just stick it on there so that way I'm not tying up one of my hands, just trying to hold a recorder the whole time. That way I have it playing.
And did you activate that audio recorder when you made contact at 46 Abbey Cross?
Yes, sir.
And did you save those recordings of your interactions with the people that were there?
Yes, sir, I did.
And Detective, if you had an opportunity to review those recordings, a true and accurate copy of your interactions at 46 Abbey Cross
Yes, sir.
on that morning. This time, well, I'm going to mark this as State Exhibit 71. I'd ask this time to play State Exhibit 71, which is the first part of the knock and talk interview.
Any objection?
No, you're not. Thank you.
Lead away, let me get this last tag. Yeah. Matthew.
shook hands, so I know
No,
that's
I'm over all that.
Is someone going to sit down or stand or?
Nice to see you guys. It was
Oh, okay. Good morning. How are you?
Oh, yeah, I guess we can do that.
Yeah. Well, we sanitize 20 times a day.
I guess that's interesting. Yeah. I'm just here to be here. I live
So no updates whatsoever, haven't heard anything, seen anything like that? Okay, from friends?
Yes, they're contacting me on Facebook and messaging. But she's been here her whole life.
Yes,
She
she
has
knows
300
everybody.
friends on Facebook.
Okay.
Posted, and that's it.
Detective, who's speaking at this point in the recording?
At that point, it's Matheau Moore.
Hear anything good to me.
Okay. Who does she work for?
Department of Medicaid. She's an auditor.
Okay.
She was working at home because they shut the office down.
Right. Do you know a contact person with them? No.
He asked for one.
I did. I got mine. Said it. Anybody can get hold of it.
Do you know anybody that she works with there, by name or phone number or anything like that?
I live in here. She didn't do a lot of socializing with people that she worked with.
Okay. Would there be a chance you could come down to our station?
Absolutely.
Chat one-on-one a little bit later on. Okay. And would it be okay if we take her cell phone?
Sure.
Okay. Would you just like to see if there's anything in there to explain?
I mean, I've been going through it, and you probably will be better at it than me.
Detective, did you ask to collect Emily's cell phone?
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
Did you ask to collect Emily's cell phone?
Yes, sir, I did.
And why did you do that?
To gain more information as to what exactly we had at this point. All we know is that she is gone.
And what was the plan for what you would do with Emily's phone once obtaining it?
The plan once obtaining it is to take it back to Westerville Police Department, where I'd provide it to Detective Lectie for a forensic extraction.
Did Matt Moore indicate whether or not he had been on Emily's phone that time?
He said that he had been on her phone.
He said that.
Yeah, we have forensic programs that can cover text message deleted things, stuff like that. So if she's left voluntarily, if she was in communication with somebody, anything like that, we want to be able to try and find out.
She was a roamer. She was, she took off and just kind of walk around. She was a forager, so
Did she bite or anything like that?
Not a lot. She was very small. She had very thin bones. She's not like white. She would bite the meat when I would want to.
she's
Her bites
happy.
here?
Yes.
So nothing is missing that you can see, can tell or like that.
I mean, enough. Her wallet, her purse, her phone, her car.
Did she have a work computer?
She did.
Do you know where that is? Did that belong to?
Doesn't that school too? No. Okay, no. I don't think that. It was a laptop. She would work out here during the day.
In response to the question about whether Emily would leave with her phone, what was the defendant's answer?
Yes, at times.
That recording came to an end there. Can you tell us how that happened?
Operator error. Essentially, my foolproof plan of storing my recorder in my notebook at the time, my notebook had actually hit the stop button at that point. So for a couple minutes, I was no longer recording until I looked down at the device itself.
And did you reactivate that recording?
Yes, sir, I did.
And did that make a separate file then, that what I'm going to mark here is State Exhibit 72?
Yes, it did.
Is it fair to say that some of the communications were from the other two people that were at the condo?
That is correct.
I'm going to ask to place Exhibit 72 and for the record starting 3 minutes and 30 seconds into the recording.
Any objection?
No, Your Honor.
And then,
It was early because we started everything at we're not the last day. So 10.
okay.
Whatever.
And then
I
you-
don't know if I made phone calls or if she did. We could probably call.
I just want to make sure, Detective. What day is this when you are at the condo originally?
This is Tuesday morning, May 26th.
So the day after law enforcement's initial response with Officer Hollis?
Yes, sir.
I get up in the middle of every night because I lost it. Every night. So it's just a routine. I got off out of this bed, I think, and I would have known she wasn't around. She sleeps out here sometimes. She likes to sleep on the floor. Nothing was unusual.
on the floor?
She sleeps like she likes being outside. She opens up all the windows. She's the squarest and neatest, kindest person, but she has no enemies. She likes to be outside, and so she'll sleep out here while the windows open, so she can hear the wind blowing and stuff. And
So she's very earthy.
yes,
Okay.
with the necklaces, and she eats. We eat for her. She feeds me. These are microgreens. She takes them. She grows. All this is all her out here. She grows plants. That sort of thing.
So you said most nights you get up and go to the bathroom? You slept in that room and she was there.
We spent some time there together. At some point, we fell asleep, and I woke up, and I'm not completely positive, but when I get up, I pass and I look at the time. So I got in my head, how much time do I got to go before I got to the morning? And it was early. It was like 12:30, 1 o'clock probably. And that to me means I'm going to need to take a Ambien, half Ambien, to get some stuff right there. I didn't get to sleep. I was looking at my phone and text 3 or 4 friends, maybe 3 friends, just stuff. And I fell asleep late. I don't know what time it was, later in the morning. Well, I slept in until at least 11, which is abnormal. I'm usually at 6.
And where were you sleeping then after you?
Yes, because I don't wake until she sleeps, and I wake her up. That's the thing. So what I do is I go in this room here, there's a couch in there, and I just, because I'm rolling around, I'm just trying to sleep. And I eventually fell asleep, and I woke up at 11. We were invited to a party, a picnic, and I text her at 11:50. I say, hey, we're still going to that party. And she didn't reply. So then I looked at my find phone just to see if she was still here. I don't know if she left. She just didn't want to wait for me. But the phone was still here, so I'm like, oh, she's here. I was awake, kind of rolling around a little bit more. Eventually I got up and I came over here and she wasn't here. And I saw her phone. And I well, that means she went for a walk. She was like 3 hours, 2 hours, 4 hours go by. Texted her again. Hey, I don't know why. I texted again. Because I still didn't see the phone for me. All right, thank you. All right, thank you. eventually got to the point where I called her best friend, Celeste, and I think she knew her, and I told her the story. Like, her wallet's here, her phone's here, the car. She's up all these. I called her.
The question I had for you, and I lost my train of thought. It'll go back to me. She doesn't have any history of any kind of mental illness, depression, anything like that?
She's just like any other girl. She gets moody, but she's not around me. She doesn't do things on purpose like this.
She never gone like a doctor who's diagnosed with it.
She's on.
What's up, Brad?
Detective. Was Mr. Moore asked whether his wife had a history of any kind of depression or other mental illness?
That's correct.
And what was his response to that?
I believe it was, she's just like any other girl.
Inside? It's your sweet. Okay. Let me call you back. The police are here. Alright. No, we're looking for it right now. I'll make it back to you. Alright.
Now, why?
She wasn't an abuser of drugs. Those pills would be like, every once in a while she'd take one, she'd take like a half of one, just to get out of her sleep. She's moody, but she's not any more moody than any other girl. She wouldn't do this to make you mad. This is just not her.
She's never disappeared for
no,
an offer.
Absolutely not. She has her phone. She'll tell you where she's always on time. She's very thirsty. She's very worried. She's always, because she's so small, she's always very careful when she goes out.
Do you mind if I look at her car real quick? When you guys talk to me? Is it unlocking now?
The key is on a station, and it should be open.
And look for that computer. Because if we find it, if it's not here, that's very telling.
That means that she took it with her.
And why should she take that and not?
I have no idea. And why not before I didn't
So this is hers? Is it an iPhone? Do you know what kind, which model? The 11? 8?
Yeah, okay.
Yes, sir. Yes, please. 3?
1, 2, 3.
Easy enough. And can you unlock and grab the serial number for me? Settings, yeah. Think about. Let's try general first. About. And then, can you read off the serial number?
You want the model numbers?
I'll take model.
So the model number is NQ962 LL /A. Serial number is F17 VW to 0 W7 JCLY.
Detective, as you were collecting Emily Knowles' phone, did you have Mr. Moore read off the serial number?
Yes, sir.
And showing stays at 15. I don't expect you to remember that entire thing that was just read off to you, but does that serial number appear to be the same thing that Mr. Moore had read off?
It does.
And for the record, we're talking about the second row there, that string of letters and numbers that started with the letter F.
Yes, sir.
And what is her phone number? 702-884-1010. Is that on purpose, or did you just leave out there? Okay. That's cool, you kept that number. It's very, very unique.
They just
And you guys, are you on the same service plan?
yes,
Okay, who's that with?
Sprint PCS.
Okay.
Computer.
Yesterday, where did you, so you pulled over at 11, 10, 11, something like that? Did you go, when did you leave the house?
The reason I say that is because I made a text to her about 11, like almost 12, and I think I lied in bed for a little bit. So I'm thinking that's really weird, because I don't sleep that late. It's just that I went so far into the night getting back to sleep.
And do you think you were for a couple hours? At 12:30, when you said got up, took half an Ambien, you said you laid there and texted some people?
I took half the Ambien at like when I woke up to take a pee to try to fall back to sleep. That took a couple hours. Back in midnight, the guy started around like 2, and then at around 4, I'm still on the phone. So I didn't really kind of work it. And eventually, around I would say around maybe 6, I did fall asleep and I slept.
And then did you go anywhere?
I don't want to be totally concrete on that.
No, I understand. Thanks for the time. Yeah. And did you go anywhere yesterday, or were you just here waiting for her?
I called the police and you guys can order it.
Dick, I want to make sure that we understand the timeline here. Can you walk us through roughly what the defendant said was the timeline of events there?
Roughly got up to go pee about 12:30, 1 o'clock in the morning, took half an Ambien, went into the other bedroom, laid back down, was up till approximately 4 a.m. Said that he fell asleep probably around 6 and then slept until about 11 a.m.
Counsel, before we go, could we take a mid-morning break here? I know we're going to be on for a while.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, let's take 10. Remember the court's admonition. Thank you. Thanks. Have a seat. Take your seat.
Thank you. Detective, still under oath.
Yes, sir.
I'm going to resume Plaintiff's Exhibit 72.
Where she walks, maybe?
Yes. Today, there's a travel today. It's very short, and I went. My dad was there. I just want to make sure someone was there. See him. I will. But
Which trail is, I know that, you know, a sex couple.
you go up. Walk in the street right here, and you take a left, and it goes up into this neighborhood in here, and then you take a right, and you take another left, and it winds around, and all of a sudden you hit that bike path. You take a right, it goes over that bridge, that beautiful bridge, that Westerville Bridge. That's where we go. We go down in there, and right along the side of the bridge, which is all the edibles that we collect, and that's where she goes. And then you take a right, you walk down county line, and it's super wooded there, so you can't see in it. I did that right, and I'm like, she is in there. You wouldn't be able to go in there and find out if she's there or not. And I'm not even thinking that right now. I just want her to go.
So the bike path on the bridge over county line and then along county line, like on the south side?
North side.
North side of county
North
line?
side of county line. You walk along until you get to the bridge. You can go this way too. And then when you get to, just before you get to the bridge, don't go on the bridge. You stay on the lawn prior to it and walk along the side of it.
Gotcha.
There's a path.
Yeah,
There's
that
woods
path right
under
there.
your left, and then there's that wall, and there's all that's where she walks there. And we get back on the path, walk down the way, and then we can take a left into this neighborhood right here. I can take you guys for that walk that we do. That's pretty much the walk she'll do to do her edible things. If she was to leave here to take a walk to get edibles, which she does all the time, that's where she would go.
Would she ever walk off the path looking for edibles?
Yes.
Okay, so it's possible that she
She
could
would
walk
go
away.
in, absolutely. She'd go all over the place. If she sees something she wants, she'll go.
How far of a walk is it down here to show us how to get on with that?
5 minutes.
Walk over to that part?
Yeah, and look for the laptop then. And
I
Yeah, I'm gonna go over this with you real quick. So, this is the consent for cell phone. Matheau Moore to hereby volunteer. Do you go by Matthew or Matt?
Matt.
Okay. You hereby voluntarily give consent to Westerville Division of Police or its agents to search following electronic devices and media-related outlets. Apple iPhone 8 Plus, black. The model number you read off, that's the serial number. Specifically, I give consent to Westerville Division of Police and other agencies and individuals acting on behalf of the police department to search all contents of the following. Basically, it's just calling for the iPhone itself. So if you're good with that, I'll need an initial there and a signature right at the bottom. Yep. Okay.
I got one other thing.
For the record, it's on the recording at 15 minutes 31 seconds into it. Detective, after this portion, did you leave Abbey Cross with the defendant?
Yes, I did.
And I'm going to put up on the overhead Defense Exhibit D. Detective, are you familiar with Defense Exhibit D?
Yes, sir.
And could you mark on the map where you went with the defendant after you left the residence at Abbey Cross?
So we had left the residence and come out to County Line Road, and I drove east on County Line and then performed a U-turn, don't tell anybody, and then parked right here. I parked off the side of the road, actually onto where the sidewalk was, and from there we got out on foot.
So you, for the record, indicated that you parked somewhere near where County Line Road and the bike path are?
Yes, sir.
How does the bike path and County Line Road interact in that area?
The bike path is actually raised and it goes above county line, so there's not a issue with traffic and bicycles at the same time. So the bike path itself is well above the roadway.
After you got out of the car on foot, where'd you go next?
So then it was myself, Detective Peachy, and Mathew Moore, and we walked along the south tree line right here, and then he showed us how they would walk along the western side of the tree line, just west of the bike path itself.
Did you enter the woods at any point over on that side?
At that point, no, we essentially stayed right on the tree line itself.
Where'd you go after you checked the tree line along the bike path?
We got back into the car, myself, Detective Peachy, and Mathew Moore, and we got back on the roadway, and then he showed us the other half of the route, so up to Ashbrook and then Maplebrook, and he showed us where they would enter the northern part of the bike path.
Did you exit your vehicle again up on the northern entrance to the bike path?
I don't think so, no.
So after you drove up to the northern entrance, what did you do next?
We then returned back to Mr. Moore's residence on Abbey Cross Lane.
Other than the cell phone, did you collect anything else from Abbey Cross at that time?
Mr. Moore identified a pair of socks that belonged to Emily and a white shirt as well as a hairbrush of hers.
And what was the purpose of collecting those items?
In case we needed to submit them later on for DNA testing purposes.
After your interaction with the defendant, what did you do next?
So after we returned to the residence and advised them that if anything popped up, if she returned home, anything like that, obviously to notify our department, Detective Peachy and I went up and attempted to knock and talk at Celeste Groen's residence.
And did you make contact with Celeste that time?
No, sir.
What did you do after attempting to speak to Celeste?
We then returned back down to the wooded area, and at this point, Detective Sergeant Alloway had arrived, and the three of us attempted to walk the bike path on foot.
Can you show the jury again, marking where you went, the three of you at that time?
So we had started on the south side down along County Line Road, and we checked this entire area up to where Maplebrook Drive is, essentially having between the three of us, we had one on the path itself, just in case there was any blood or anything like that, we wanted to be able to obviously retain it at that point, and then a detective along each side of the bike path, and we all moved north at the same time.
During that time when you were walking along the bike path, did you go into the woods?
Barely. The primary area that we were looking for was on that knock and talk with Mr. Moore. He said that she would primarily go no farther than 15-20 feet in. So we basically just focused our area on that. At this point, we're assuming that there's a good chance that there's a medical emergency. She could have been laying in there and no one had seen her. So we're at this point focusing on the area that Mr. Moore said that she would like to forage.
Can you describe generally what the woods are like there just off to the west of the bike path?
It's fairly level and fairly open. You have obviously a lot of trees, as you can tell by the photograph, but they're generally much higher than eye level or anything else like that. So it's a lot more wide open at that point.
Are you able to see some distance into the woods on that side from the tree line?
Yes, sir.
After you, the three of you searched that bike path, what did you do next?
We then returned back to the Detective Bureau and continue our investigation.
Detective, during that time, on the 26th, were you aware of other investigation going on?
Like another separate investigation?
Other investigation related to the disappearance of Emily Noble?
So other aspects of this case itself?
Yeah, right.
Yes, sir.
Had you enlisted the help of other detectives to help do some of those things?
Yes, sir, it did.
And can you give us an idea generally of the types of things that were being done at that?
We had a detective looking, online for any social media activity, and, anything that could potentially be out of the ordinary. Had another detective go to the 3 restaurants in Uptown and try to talk with them, see if there was any video, anything out of the ordinary with any of the servers. At this point, anything that we could have to potentially go on.
Did you participate in any of the canine searches that we heard testimony about yesterday?
So yes, at approximately 11:30, so this is still on the 26th, myself, Detective Peachy, Detective Sergeant Alloway, and later on we had a uniformed officer, Peachy, husband and wife duo, so I'm going to have to differentiate detective to officer. To have a uniform presence, we did return to Matheau Moore's residence.
And what did you do at that time?
Made contact with him. He did grant permission for the attic and the garage to be checked. And ultimately, Detective Sergeant Alloway had requested a bloodhound to respond to the scene.
And were you present when the bloodhound was deployed?
I was present when it was deployed, but I did not walk along with it.
I want to turn your attention then to the next day, May 27th.
Yes, sir.
Did you have contact from the defendant that morning?
Yes, sir, I did.
And can you tell us what that was related to?
He had notified me that he had received some threatening messages, essentially claiming that they had kidnapped Emily and they were holding her for ransom at this point.
When he called you and told you about the threatening message, what was your response?
I asked him to email me the screenshots just so that I could see it for it myself, since he had told me over the phone what was happening. I was not present with him at the time.
And did he send you the screenshots?
Yes, he did.
If I may approach the witness. Handy was marked as State Exhibit 73. Can you take a moment to look that over?
Okay.
Detective, you recognize that document?
I do.
And generally speaking, what is it?
The screenshot that Matheau Moore was notifying me about.
This time, that's the published Exhibit 73 of the jury.
Any objection? No, Your Honor. Go ahead.
Detective, I'm showing you State Exhibit 73. Can you tell us, now the jury can see it, tell us what it is we're looking at here?
These are some of the messages that Matheau Moore had received in regards to Emily being sick, and they were holding her for ransom unless they received $7,000.
After this screenshot was sent to you, what did you do?
I asked him if he could come in and provide his cell phone so that we could provide essentially a forensic analysis to see what exactly we were looking at this point.
What was his response to your request for him to bring you his cell phone?
He advised that he was going to take a shower and he'd be in the police station probably about 45 minutes.
Did he come in 45 minutes later?
No, but he did call.
And what happened in that phone call?
He advised me that it was probably just a prank and he wouldn't be coming in to provide his cell phone to me because he was going to need it that day.
Was there other investigative steps being prepared for May 27th?
Yes, sir.
And can you tell us generally what those were?
Detective Lectie was working on obtaining a search warrant. There was a search warrant for the residence at 46 Abbey Cross, as well as a search warrant for any electronic devices in Mr. Moore's possession.
And what was the purpose of a search warrant for 46 Abbey Cross?
Because at that point, we had nothing else to go on other than the fact that, according to Matheau Moore, the last place that Emily was seen was sleeping in the house. So that was the last place we had to go on. So we asked for a search warrant in case there was any sort of evidence in the residence itself.
You mentioned that part of the search warrant was also to collect any cell phones.
That is correct.
What was the purpose of that portion of the search warrant?
To see if there was any forensic evidence on Matheau Moore's cell phone that could provide us with this, furthering this investigation.
Did you proceed to the condo with the search warrant?
Yes, sir.
And what was your role going to be in that?
My role primarily, since I'd had the most contact with Matheau Moore at that point, was to make contact with him, obtain the cell phone, and then ask him to come back to the station voluntarily for an interview.
Did you speak to Mr. Moore at that time?
Yes, sir, I did.
And did he agree to come down to the police department to speak to you?
Yes, he did.
Where at the police department did you speak to Mr. Moore?
We spoke to him in one of the interview rooms.
And are the interview room equipped with a video camera?
Yes, it is.
And does it record both video and audio?
Yes, it does.
Just something quick for the record.
Detective, who was present for the interview with Mr. Moore?
Initially, it was just myself and Mr. Moore.
And did anyone else join you during that time?
Later on, I was joined by Detective Peachy.
Before we put up on the overhead, let me pull something up here. Detective, I'm going to 74. Detective, are you able to see on the screen in front of you, stays at a 74? Oh, hold on. That was a test. You
I
passed.
thought it was a trick question, sir.
Now, can you see he stays at 74?
Much better, yes, sir.
All right. Before we play that, can you tell us what it is you're looking at there in States Exhibit 74?
So this is from one of our overhead cameras in the interview room, and that's Mr. Moore sitting in one of the chairs.
And does it indicate a date of when this is being recorded?
It does.
And what is that date, sir?
May 27th, 2020 at 4:47:02 p.m.
And is the State Exhibit 74 a true and accurate copy of the video recording of your interview with the defendant on May 27th?
Yes, it is.
All right. At this time, I would now ask to publish the first portion of State Exhibit 74 to the jury.
No objection, Your Honor.
Thank you. It's hard for me here.
I can appreciate that. So, now, like I told you, when we were out there, said you were not under arrest. You weren't handcuffed coming in, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. And that door doesn't lock. This is a voluntary interview. Okay. Obviously, we need to do the best we can to get the full story. You can find your wife and you can get back to normal. Obviously, part of that involves talking with you. So, again, this is a voluntary thing. Like I told you out there, I haven't lied to you. I'm not going to start now.
We could have done this at my house
No, this part we can't do.
because it's not voluntary.
No, it's completely voluntary.
And I could leave if I want to.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't want to. I'm just.
Yeah. You try that door right now.
At some point, could we I want to help you. I want to get this going because I didn't do it, and I want you to find whatever the hell happened to her.
Me too.
I want it to happen, but just.
Detective, as you began that discussion with Mr. Moore, did anything stand out to you about your initial interaction with him?
Yes, he stated he didn't do it.
Did you accuse him of doing anything in particular at that time?
No, sir. All I was doing was going over the fact that it was a voluntary interview, and he made that statement.
No, but it's a little hard for me. Sometime if
I respect that. We can take it.
out in the hallway or something.
I get it. So
go do your thing.
And
I'm an open book, man.
I don't mean to insult you.
No.
But you can read English, correct?
Yes.
Okay. I have to ask that because I've had people before that
I can read.
when I go over rights waivers later on, they magically can't read English.
I can
also.
read.
So again, I don't mean to insult you. So it says before we ask any questions, you must understand your rights. You understand that part?
Yes.
You have the right to remain silent. Is it locked? That's weird.
These are my Miranda warnings.
Yeah.
So I'm being arrested.
You're not being arrested.
So why am I being read my Miranda warning?
Because it's the standard protocol that I do, just to make sure that we are on the same page with everything. I told you honesty. I be fully aware of everything. I told you not being arrested. Anything you say can be used against you in court. You understand that part? You have the right to talk to a lawyer before we ask you any questions, and to have a lawyer with you during questioning. Do you understand that?
Yes.
If you cannot afford a lawyer, one will be appointed for you before any questioning if you wish. Do you understand that?
Yes.
If you decide to answer questions now without a lawyer present, you'll still have the right to stop answering at any time. Do you understand that?
Yes.
You also have the right to stop answering at any time until you talk to a lawyer.
It seems fair.
Understand that part?
It seems like a right that's in the Constitution or something, so I'm totally on board with it.
Good. And I, Matthew
Metheau
E.A.U.
Moore, M-O-R-E.
I've read the statement of my rights, and I understand what my rights are. No promises or threats have been made to me. Is that fair and accurate? I'll give you that pen so we can both write at the same time.
Today is
The 27th.
5/27/20. Time
The time is 4:51. Put my info down.
Detective, I'm going to hand you Westford Margin State Exhibit 75. I'll flip that over.
Okay.
And generally speaking, can you tell the jury what that is?
That is a copy of the Miranda rights waiver that I just went over with Mr. Moore with his signature on it.
Is it a true and accurate copy of the document that Mr. Moore signed for your interview on May 27th?
Yes, it is.
That's the publish to the jury?
No objection, Your Honor. Thank you.
Detective, I'm not showing you Exhibit 75. Did you read that language at the top of the form directly to Mr. Moore?
Yes, sir.
And whose signature appears under the waiver of rights next to the word signed?
That's Mathew Moore's signature.
Now, for the record, resuming Exhibit 74.
So, now when you called to report Emily on Monday evening, Officer Hollis is the one that came out, correct?
Like I had said to you.
Yes. Okay. Very friendly guy?
Very nice.
Okay. Did he treat you well?
Absolutely.
Okay. Did he have you provide any sort of, I can't even talk. It's been that kind of day,
Trust
right?
me, I'm gonna have a hard time talking.
Well, if you get tongue-tied, I'll totally get it. Did he have you fill out any sort of written statement as to what had happened?
No.
Okay. What I would like from you, and I've got paper here for you, and I will leave and give you a piece. If you want me to stay in here, I can stay in here. It's up to you.
Staying here with me.
Okay? And I'll be completely quiet, but I just need a statement from you. You have to, starting from, when you went to bed on Sunday evening until you called the police on Monday at whatever time it was.
Okay. I mean,
and I understand that you've talked about it and everything else like that. However, it's just a procedural thing that needs to happen. And honestly, I told you, I like honesty. I'm not happy that Officer Hollis didn't get that on Monday.
it's probably fresher in my mind then.
I get it.
I've gone through my head with the timeline, and some of my times don't line up. I made a phone call when I thought I was sleeping.
Okay.
So, I try my best, but I don't want to make
But
anything false.
you're human, right?
Yeah, I'm human.
And all I want is your best.
It might be, specific times I couldn't really be like, this is when I did this, this is when I did that. I could if I had my phone sort of.
Just the best that you can.
Yeah, yeah, man. Just know that the times are going to might be wrong, and I would hate to give you a wrong time, and then be like suspecting me of something.
I just don't want to blatant lie like the sky's purple.
Absolutely.
Something like that.
If
you say this happened at 4:51, and I'm like, oh no, that's bullshit. It was 4:55.
No,
You lied.
it could be an hour off. It could be. It was night. It was just like any other night. It wasn't.
Correct.
So I'm not like checking my time.
Right, and you're human.
It was a normal night. We drank. We came home. We hung out. I left because I wake up in the middle of the night to go pee. I don't go back into the bedroom because I don't want to wake her up. I sleep in my son's room, who doesn't live there anymore, on the couch, and I I made texts, and I talked to people during that period.
Okay.
And it's on the phone.
Just the best in your own words.
But I can't tell you, hey, I made texts at 5, at 3, you know what I mean?
Right.
I can't, I won't write down times, but I'll just kind of give you a brief, like a story without times, because I think that.
But just any instance that you can recall.
Yeah.
Like I'm not so time focused right now. It's just the fact that I want to be able to make sure I have everything sequentially.
I feel comfortable.
From how I understand it, I want to make sure that I can pick up and go, oh yeah, that's right. When he woke up, he then moved the refrigerator on the roof. Whatever it may be, I want to make sure that sequentially I understand.
Could you help me write it? Because I can't spell for one. I'm pretty horrible. Or just kind of help me.
Well, if you need help with the word, I can help you spell it, absolutely. And I'm not here to judge
You want
spelling.
the whole day?
Just from when you went to bed, that Sunday night.
So you don't want to know what we were prior to?
No, not so. Because that's always stuff that we can follow up on.
Because I'm not really sure when we got home.
Okay.
From being out.
Okay. So, just name, address, date of birth, and then you don't have to worry about anything on this side. Your handwriting is actually much more pleasant than some other ones that I've seen.
You want the Westerville?
Yes.
What's this? Rick?
And I really want you to just take your time. Make sure that we're all on the same page.
We got home from being in Uptown. We talked. It was her birthday. We talked, we went to bed. Together? Do I say we had sex or?
Any details like that, we're all adults.
Made love, I guess. It was her birthday. Fell asleep. I fell asleep. I'm not sure if she did. She might have stayed up. I'm not sure, but I passed out. Woke up. Went up to pee or urinate. I did look at the clock. I don't want to say that I knew what time it was, but whenever I wake up to go to the bathroom, I look at the clock to see how close it is to the morning, and that determines whether I take a sleeping pill or not.
Okay.
Which is, I don't know the name of it. I take a half one, and it was earlier, so I'm going to say, I don't want to say, like 1 maybe, which is early.
Okay.
And I woke up to urinate, went to my son's room, to sleep on couch. Couch is COUCH. Spent time looking through TROUGH phone, made a few text messages at MESS, PGES. Maybe a few text messages I might have posted on Facebook. I don't know. I'm going to say I did if I did. I didn't look. Might have posted on Facebook. I texted my stepfather. I know I did. He texted back. I think I don't know what time it was 3. I think he got back to me at 8. From what I saw today, I actually texted back to him at 8, so I might have been awake later than I thought. But at some point, late morning, late morning, late night, early morning, or like 8, 7, 6, I don't know, whenever that's late night, late early morning, or it's at some point.
Was it sun up?
I couldn't tell you. At some point, I'm going to say it was starting to be dawn because there's a reason for that. Because usually I do fall back asleep before it gets light out, and then I usually wake up at like 8 o'clock, 7 o'clock. You know what I mean? I didn't wake up till like past 11, I think, which is really late. I could have woke up a few times in between that and to at some point fell back asleep. Because I think I did at some point in mid-morning make a text to somebody. I'm not sure. I don't know if I should put that down.
Yeah.
I might have made a mid-morning text. I remember awaking. The text says the time was like almost 12. I could have woke up at 11, just lied in bed for a little bit. Waking towards how TWORD?
TOWARDS.
TOWARDS. Yes. Towards noon. I text Emily to see if we were going to a Memorial Day. How do you spell that? M-A-M.
O-R-I-A-L.
M-A-O.
M-E-M.
M-E-M.
O-R-I-A-L.
I-A-L. Day picnic. I don't know the guy's name. I got it written down. It's on my phone. I'm sure you guys already know.
I've talked about it.
Picnic. She didn't respond. I'm not 100% sure, but I checked my Find phone app, and it said that she was there.
How long after you sent the text when you, if you had a ballpark?
I don't know.
More than an hour?
No, it was probably within like
5-10 minutes?
I'm guessing. I'm going to guess. I don't know, but I do know that I looked just to see if she was still in the house, because, you know what I mean, it was later. I thought maybe she could have left, you know, early, you know, because she didn't come in and wake me up, which is not like she does that. I mean, we had someplace to go. She didn't respond. At some point I checked my find a phone, and it was still there. I don't know how much longer I lied in bed, but I know I made another text to her at around 3, and said, well, I guess we're not going. And I'd already been up in the house, so I didn't know her phone was on. I hadn't seen her phone by then, I don't think. Or I wouldn't have texted. It would have been right there. I don't know how to word that. She didn't respond. I retexted. I got up, looked through the house. I checked for her car. Which was there. Which was there. I went back to my son's room. Lied on the couch. Flipping through the phone. I don't know if I made any text messages or not. I'll have to look. Some point in the afternoon, I noticed her phone, I noticed her wallet.
Okay. Where were those at?
Her phone was next to her bed, her wallet was, I don't remember. Her car, I came before. All of a sudden, just at some point in the afternoon, I realized that there was something wrong. Things, her other stuff was there, and she was gone, and she hadn't come back. I realized REALIZED. I called her friend. Celeste. It would be a C. Celeste, we talked. She said, call police. You guys should. Got home from being in Uptown, we talked, we went to bed together, made love, fell asleep, woke up to urinate, went to my son's room to sleep on the couch. Spent time looking at the phone, made a few text messages, might have passed Facebook at some point. At some point, I fell back to sleep, I might have made a mid-morning text. I remember waking towards noon, text Emily to see if we were going to a Memorial Day picnic. She didn't respond. I got up, looked through the house, I checked for her car, which was there. I went back to my son's room, only because I didn't think that anything was at that point wrong. She walks around, she does things, she's just not there at that point. To the house, I checked for her car, which was there. I went back to my son's room, lying on the couch, flipping through the phone. At some point in the afternoon, I realized there was something wrong. I called her friend Celeste. We talked. She said to call the police. When I saw her phone, at some point, when I saw her phone, it was probably the last thing I really was like, this is not right. Because the phone is pretty much your thing. I mean,
Can I read over it then?
yes.
Sure. You have very nice handwriting. I'll challenge you.
That is mine. I didn't do anything in school.
No, you don't. Your handwriting's awful.
You know what stinks is when you make really bad spelling mistakes. I mean,
Detective, I'm going to approach the handle some more stickers at 76 until they want to flip that over. And do you recognize that document, sir?
I do.
And generally speaking, can you tell the jury what it is?
It's a copy of the witness statement that Mr. Moore just completed.
And it's a true and accurate copy of the statement that Mr. Moore filled out on May 27th.
Yes, it is.
This time it has to publish to the jury.
No objection, Your Honor.
Detective, starting in the top left corner there, can you tell us whose handwriting that is and the location, date, time, and incident number?
That is my handwriting.
And then just to the right of that, can you tell us whose handwriting is in name, address, phone, date of birth, and occupation?
That is Mathew Moore's handwriting.
And what did Mr. Moore list as his occupation?
He's an unemployed casino dealer.
Underneath that, is that continue to be Mr. Moore's handwriting?
Yes, it does.
And is that the statement that he wrote out as we just watched in the video of him talking it through with you?
Yes, it is.
What is the purpose of the line that comes after the text ends?
Just to show that that was the end of his statement. Nothing else was added on later on after the fact. That was the true ending of what he had written.
And then finally, all the way down here at the bottom of State 76, what are we looking at there?
That is Mathew Moore's signature.
Now resuming plaintiff State Exhibit 74.
the handwriting.
Well,
So like, yeah.
we're not the spelling police.
Good.
I could introduce you to some of my coworkers and you're head of that. For being up to you talked. So you don't remember what time you came back from Uptown?
So we came directly from, I think our last bar was the, not the Hook Line Center, what's that other old school? Bag and Nails. And I think I have the receipt. It was only for like 20, we got fish fry, maybe a couple drinks. I don't think we were there for that long. We could check with them. I think they probably will know.
And then from Old Bag you went
So
straight home?
we walked across the street, we were parked across the street behind Colgate's, and we went right in.
Okay. And was the sun still out when you got home?
I'm guessing that it probably was,
Okay.
but I don't know.
Were you intoxicated when you
Yeah,
drove back?
I mean, yeah.
I appreciate the honesty. We've all done it.
I mean, yeah.
Okay. So
We
then,
weren't stumbling drunk, but we were.
if you had to approximate that time,
8, 9. We went to my father's. We gardened. You'd have to check with him, but I think we left there around 4 or 5. We got there at noon. We usually gardened for about 4 hours. It was hot.
okay.
He had friends over. We went home. We washed up, and we weren't ready. We didn't even take showers. We just kind of washed up because we were pretty dirty. We went to the bar. So, I mean, we were there early.
Okay.
So, and we wouldn't make, it's not going to be like getting home at 12 or 1 o'clock at night. It's earlier. It's like 9, 10, no later. And it could have been even earlier than that.
So you're thinking 8, 9-ish?
Probably, 8, 9, 10.
Okay.
Area.
All right. So then you get home and you hang out, you drink anymore at home? If you guys were...
She has beers in the fridge, and I don't know reason there's beer at my house right now, because that's all that was in there. I don't drink beer, so I do.
What's
I
your
wouldn't
preference?
get home at vodka.
Okay.
So I sip vodka on the rocks, and I didn't have any home. So usually when I get home after drinking, that's it for me. She'll continue to drink sometimes. But
Did she keep drinking?
I don't.
But you did not?
No.
Okay. And you guys hung out and talked?
We hung out in the kitchen, and we got really along really super well. It was her birthday. We started making out, and we went into the bedroom, and we had sex.
Okay. And that's in... So there's the master bedroom, just to make sure that I'm different.
The master bedroom.
And then there's the what you call your man cave.
And that would be my son.
That Joey's room? Okay. Just to make sure that I'm separating right. So you went to your bedroom and had sex?
I went into the master bedroom with my wife.
Yes, sir.
And that's where she likes. Sometimes she sleeps on the porch, on the ground. She likes to be outside. I don't know if she went in there at some point. As far as I know, I fell asleep. I woke up because I had to pee. She was there. I mean, I wouldn't know if she wasn't. I would just, how you know if your wife's sitting out there. I didn't have any inkling that she wasn't there. I remember looking at the clock because I like to time how much time I have left to sleep. So whether I take the pill to fall asleep or not, I don't know if I did or not. I might have been drunk enough to still kind of not be one. And I went into Joey's room, lay on the couch. It's something that happens every night. I don't think there's a night that goes by that I sleep all the way through in the master room. I always have to get up and go pee because I'm not pressed up. And I do remember it. Usually it's pretty much I fall asleep an hour. When I was lying in bed for quite a bit, and I made a couple texts, and I have it on my phone. Actually, I looked at my phone today, and I don't know how it works, but it was an 8 o'clock phone call. I could have fell asleep and woke up at 8 and then fell back asleep. The next thing you know, I slept into the day, which is very unusual, at 11, because the first thing I did was text her and be like, are we still going to that party? And that was, I think, towards 12.
Hold on. So you got up to go pee, and the routine is after you pee, then you don't climb back into bed with her?
I don't.
And the routine is that you look at the clock to see if you should take a sleeping pill or not?
How much time I have left before, if it's real late into the night, I won't take one. So, but if it's early, I do. But I don't know. It was early, but I don't know if I took one or not. So.
Do you know what type of medicine?
It's like a Ambien, but it's some other derivative of Ambien, and I take half of it.
Okay. All right.
And they definitely give it up.
But you don't remember that night you took one?
I don't remember. And I probably not, because I was up making phone calls, or not phone calls, but texting.
Who's up at that time?
You'd have to check. I have a friend in Vegas, so he would be, and he's up there. So it's 3, it's 12 out there. I'm not sure. You'll have to check.
You don't remember who you texted?
I remember texting my stepfather, and that was the one that was at 8, and he's at 8 our time. He's East Coast, so
8 a.m. You texted him?
After midnight. That's right.
So is it after midnight, or is it 8 a.m. that you texted?
8. No, it was that night, that early morning, 8 o'clock a.m.
Our time?
Yes, he's
Okay, but what about at 1 or 2 or whatever time it was?
I made a post at 3 in the morning, and I think it was to my brother, Paul. And,
like a Facebook post?
On iMessenger. You'll have to check. I don't want to lie. I don't want to say, you know what I mean? But I think it was something funny about the MMA fighter guy, the guy that runs the UFC, that's having some sort of stuff that's off the shore. He's doing distancing fighting.
So was this a social media post or like a text message?
It was I messenger it is like a messenger that other people can't see. It's just what I sent it to.
So that you sent it iPhone to iPhone?
Yeah.
And this was at like 3 in the morning?
I think it was at 3.
This was stepbrother?
Half-brother.
Half-brother?
All lives in Florida.
Half-brother.
And I'm fairly, I mean, I've been kind of doing my thing, trying to figure out the timelines and stuff, and I'm pretty sure, and I think there's one more in there too that I sent out that I don't know if anybody responded to, or but I definitely sent it out, I'm not sure. You have to look, a friend.
And you haven't gone back to look to see?
I did, I'm nervous right now, I'm not really sure. I don't think they responded to it, so I'm not sure. I have 5 friends that we kind of like just goof around and text each other.
So did you text the one friend or the 5 friends?
I didn't text 5 friends. I remember texting I believe it was my brother about the Dana White issue, and I remember texting my stepfather about the water bottles he collects. He collects spring water. He drinks spring water, and we just started doing that. We go that day. We went down and got spring water, and I was talking about how the shelf life of water.
And you texted him that night too?
That early morning.
Yeah, the 3-ish or whatever.
Monday early morning.
Yes.
No, it wasn't 3. It was so I said it was more like
anytime from midnight to 3-ish.
When we see the times, he might have responded at 8 o'clock, and I texted him at 3. I would have to see my phone to tell.
Okay.
But there was definitely correspondence going on while I'm trying to fall asleep at night.
Any social media posts?
You'd have to check. I don't think so. I don't think so. But at some point in the morning, I fell back asleep. I did get back to sleep, and I didn't wake up until late into the morning. And the first thing I did was, because I knew we had to go to this, we'd been invited to a party, was I said, hey, we still going to the party, and she didn't respond.
And where was that party?
I don't know him. She just barely knows him. It's on there. I talked to him, actually, because I gave him, they were like, who is this guy? And I found out who he was, and they called him, and I texted him, and I asked him, maybe she went over there.
You texted him on your phone?
I'm not sure. No, it was hers, because it was through her. It was her phone. So I wouldn't have it. I don't even know this guy. And I asked him, hey, is Emily over there? Maybe she went over there without me. Maybe I slept too late. And she just said, whatever. I'm not going to get him up. I'm just going to go without him. And he said that he hadn't heard from her all day.
About what time was that?
11, 12, 11, maybe close to 12.
You texted him?
I don't know, one night. Maybe a couple hours after that, or after that. I would hate to not say. I don't know.
So then, in your words, you got up like around 11-ish?
Was it closer to 12? If I remember correctly. And I got up and I walked around and she wasn't there, and I'm like, okay, she's out doing her thing, and I went back to my couch. She was kind of there, over from the night before. And the next thing I did was text her again at, I think 3. It was like 3 hours later, and I'm like, I guess we're not going to the party. Where are you? I didn't ask her that, but I was like, I guess we're not going to the party. And that was the last thing I texted her. Got up again, and then I looked, there's her car, there's her purse, there's her phone. Things started, this is not right.
Where was her phone when you found it?
On her end table.
Is that normally where it is?
Well, no. I mean, yeah, sometimes. If she's lying there, that's where it is.
Does she generally sleep in the bed?
Like I said, sometimes she sleeps on the floor. She's just been recently doing that.
Well, what I'm saying is when she sleeps in bed, is her phone on the end table next to the bed?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean...
And then when she sleeps on the floor, where does she put her phone?
Yeah, the phone's with her most of the time.
Okay. Does she always have her phone with her?
She always has her phone with her. And the only time she doesn't, and I said this when the first guy that came over, she goes out with these forage things, and she does this route, and he was like, does she ever go out at night, by herself? And I'm like, no. She does at night. That's something, but she does. at times, now that I think of it, especially if she's got a buzz and she's drinking, she'll get that, and she'll grab a flashlight, and she'll go on us, and she comes back with the force, and she shows them.
Let me rewind real quick. I got a question. So between 11 and 3, what were you doing? Were you just laying there on the couch?
11 in the morning till 3 in the afternoon, it was lying in my son's room.
Okay.
Kind of just chilling, recovering, waiting for her.
Did you ever go to the bathroom at any point?
I
Did you drink?
don't. Yeah, there was periods where, I mean, I definitely got up.
Okay. You didn't notice she was gone? Or?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right.
Absolutely. The first time when I texted her and said, "Are we going to this party?" and she didn't get back to me, I checked the Find My phone, and the phone said that she was there. So I'm like, okay, you know what I mean? At some point that happened. So it just didn't, okay, she's doing her thing, she's going to come in and get me when we're ready to go, or whatever. At some point, she didn't come in and get me. I got up, went out there, between 11 and 3 at some point. It still wasn't a big concern. I wasn't freaked out. I kind of went around a little bit, and the first thing I did was look to see if her car was there, because she could have took off. That would have made sense that she left. Her car was there, so well, okay, she's doing something. She's just out and about. I texted her again at 3. I'm pretty sure that's the time. You guys can check the.
And in between those 2 times, you texted the gentleman in.
No, I didn't get concerned until the second time I texted her and said, "Hey, I guess we're not going."
Okay. So you texted him
and that
after
was at 3, could have been 3:40, could have been 3:50.
Okay.
Then after that text, that's when I got up. I didn't even know her phone was still there until, because I texted it. So her sister made a group text that I didn't notice, and her sister says it was at 3:45. And she says she responded to it.
At 3:45 p.m. on Monday?
Yes. Let me think. I'm getting screwed up. I'm not getting this screwed up. Maybe it was 8:45 in the morning. That's what it was. It was 8, so while I'm sleeping.
So her sister, what's her sister's first name?
Her sister name is Amy.
Okay. She said she sent a group text at 8:45 that morning?
To her and I. And from that, you can tell whether someone views it. And she said that we both viewed it at some point. I don't know when I did. She said that, I don't know if you can tell when they get viewed, but it was viewed. And I didn't, it wasn't me that viewed it with the phone. So to me, she was there at 8:45 or 8 in the morning. Emily was there. That's my. And the guy across the street, John, said that he saw her at 10 or 10:30 or whatever.
No, that's incorrect. John has since backtracked.
Okay. Right.
Yeah, that's kind of what and he re-answered like 8 to 9, and then he's now saying I can't
swear to it. And
maybe not, could be Sunday.
So that makes it look bad for me.
Well, it just makes it great. I mean, we're not going to put.
You guys want to look at anything in my body, you want to look at anything at all, I'm here.
Well, let's just talk. And,
I hope you guys know that I love my wife, and I would never hurt her.
Well, that's kind of where I was going to go next, because we've kind of beat this timeline down pretty good. So, you guys got married 2 years ago?
We got married August 28. August 28, 2018. Easy one to remember, right?
8/28/2018. Okay.
And I had a son.
Any tissues or anything? Drink water? Okay. We know about it. We don't need to. We don't want to bring up bad memories, so let's try and focus on. Okay, because
Oh, schizophrenia is the worst thing that happened to me. I don't know where to go now. What do you want to know?
So, what years did you live out in Vegas?
I did 25 years out there. 93, 4. to get my son. He was having trouble in school. And not trouble, he just couldn't learn very well out there. And they didn't have special education out there. And my dad said, come on out here and live with me. And we'll enroll him in Worthington. They have a special course for kids that aren't doing well. And so I moved out here. And that's, when I was out here, I don't know what year that was. You guess that was just 2 years ago. He was a freshman in high school, so he would have graduated this year, so it would have been 4 years ago. He was in 9th grade. And Emily and I met via the internet, and we started dating, and it lasted like a year. My son didn't make it in the school he was going to, and I ended up having to move out of the house in my dad's home. I was living with my dad, and I ended up in a place I could afford because I was working at the casino here in town, which is a real crappy casino. I can only afford it.
Big difference.
Yeah, I was making really good money out there, and so I moved to the continent, and I just wasn't making enough money. So and Emily and I weren't like living together type relationship. So I took off. I said I gotta go back to Vegas and try to get my job back. And I went back there, and my son got sick, and I'd still been in contact with Emily, and Emily, Joey's sick, sick. He's got, and I don't have any insurance because I quit my job, and when I moved back to Vegas, they didn't give me insurance. It was a long process because of that Obamacare, so I didn't have any insurance to take care of my kid that had caught schizophrenia. We didn't know what schizophrenia then, but he was sick. And she said, come on back here and marry me. Come on back here and marry me. We'll get him in Westville. So I moved back probably in July. We got married in August. We enrolled in school.
Okay.
And that's how things went. And things were really, really super great.
And things were great with you and Em?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
She saved my life.
Now, we don't have some issues with our wives. You and I have both been married once before and divorced, okay? We all know how marriages are, so there's ups and downs. What were the downs?
I lost my sex drive after my kid died, sort of, and there was an issue with that. There was never any, she really was really great with the house. She was really meticulous, and I liked it. She reminded me of my mother when it came to taking care of a home, and so she would tell me to wash this and do that, and I really dug it. And it was, we would bicker about.
For the record, I'm sorry to stop that point at 42 minutes, 58 seconds. Yeah, I see it's now noon. This witness is going to continue for many hours. I think probably a good place to break for lunch if that works for everyone.
If that works for you, that's fine. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, let's take our midday break at this point. Let's come back at 1 p.m. Remember the court's admonition? Have a good break. Thank you.